Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. He's Mike Irwin. I'm Courtney Mims, or if you're a Kentucky fan watching this video, you may know me as Not Mike, and that is correct. That's my other name here at the Big Trail Nation. Sorry, Mike, I had to poke a little fun at the Kentucky fans there who are watching this show. We appreciate you all for watching this week's episode of Ask Mike, and if you enjoy us, please hit that subscribe button and please like this video. Listen, when I say like this video, you guys listen because we get way more likes than the week before. So go ahead and like that video right now. Let's get into it though, Mike. We have a lot of questions this week. Our first question is about what? Basketball. And from Hog Redneck who asked, so we went 1-1 last week. Cal was talking about this team writing its own story after beating Georgia, but they needed to go on a run to do that. 1-1 is hardly a run and not what they needed.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when you get that first win and it's 1-5, you can see a scenario where if you keep winning games, suddenly you get back up there where you're in. But then when you go 1-1, and both of these teams that you're playing at home are teams maybe lower half of the SEC, so maybe you could get a win there and you only go 1-1. Now the odds really go up that you're not going anywhere. And when you look down the road at what they've got left, I can see 3 more wins, maybe 4. So we're looking at 4 of 14 or 5 and 13. Neither one of those get you in.
No.
So what do you do at that point? I think you go to the NIT. Other people say, no, turn it down. No, I mean, you need to take as many of these guys that are coming back, you need to put them in a tournament environment. And it helps them for next year because they've at least been in that sort of a thing rather than just sitting around and doing nothing because the season's over. So you want to play as many games as you can with these guys. And look, there's still a chance that they'll get better. I don't think they'll get enough better to get to the tournament, but that doesn't mean there aren't things you need to do to continue to try to improve things. And if you're one of those fans that said, I don't want any more to do with this, just start waiting for baseball. I do think if you've got tickets, you ought to still come because you gotta roll as a fan to at least support the program. You can't be the kind of fan that just dumps on a team because they're not winning the way you want them to. You bought the tickets, use them.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, you look at around the SEC and you see even some of the fan bases like South Carolina men's basketball. I'm surprised with how
haven't
much
won a game.
They haven't. But their fans still show up. I've been watching the games. I'm going, wow, they actually have a good amount of fans that are showing up.
Razorback fans as a group, the season ticket holders right now, they're real picky. And it hasn't always been that way. This is for the last 5, 6, 7 years.
I think there's some questions later on that we're going to dive into about how Hunter Yurachek is doing ticketing for next season. It might maybe explain that. But to answer your question about the NCAA tournament, I was looking at the analytics. And before the Oklahoma game, they gave Arkansas 30% chance of making the NCAA tournament. What did the analytics drop to after that loss to Oklahoma?
Probably a lot.
16%.
Yeah.
Just
that loss hurt.
It hurt a lot.
It was a winnable game.
It absolutely was. We're going to get into that because Mousetown says Calipari called a timeout with 12 seconds left and drew up a play. If the play was for Nelly Davis to shoot a short jumper with Biggs in his face, then it was a bad plan.
Well, it kind of got messed up. And I'm watching on TV because I'm not working. I work part-time now, so I was at home. I wasn't at the game. But when you're watching on TV, you can see that Big Z is standing at the back. Everybody else is down huddled. He's kind of standing up and he's looking. It's noisy, and you can tell he can't hear because he's leaning in. And then Thero comes up to him, and you can tell he's explaining to him what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And so he's kind of like doing it. But then he said, Big Z said after the game that it kind of got messed up and he wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. And then Cal came back and he seemed to indicate that the plan was to put the ball up for a backside layup or dunk or whatever. It wasn't to shoot the ball. That's not what happened. Nelly Davis got it. Probably what he should have done is just shoot the shot because he's a shooter, shoot the shot where he is when he's open. Or if he moved in toward the basket, draw people in, and then I think it was DJ Wagner that was open out here on the other.
It was. He was open.
Yeah, so he could take a shot. Now, that doesn't mean the plan that would have worked, but it just wasn't executed very well, and it just got messed up. And I don't blame Cal. I mean,
no, I thought the plan was a good plan.
You can. These things are done when it's noisy and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Fans don't ever take any of that into consideration. I mean, they didn't have time to sit there and go, now does everybody hear this? You know, you do what you do, and then you have to hope it works. And even if everybody executed the plan exactly the way it was drawn up, doesn't mean it would have gone in.
No, it doesn't. And to all those fans over there saying, I wouldn't put the ball in Nellie Davis' hands, I understand what you're saying there, but it is also, it's a high stress situation. And I do believe, you know, again, this goes back to some of the players and the experience and how we talk about this team and maybe how much talent is really on there. I mean, you saw DJ Wagner, if you just had basketball IQ and could see that and see the floor really well, you would have seen DJ Wagner open.
Yeah.
I would have liked to take that option if you had seen that, if you were Nellie Davis and saw that.
To me, it's just one more example of the fact you got all these guys playing together for the first. And Nellie Davis hadn't been playing a lot until recently, honestly. Haven't been using him a lot because he hadn't been shooting well. So now all of these guys are trying to do things, and what you see is a team that when it's clicking, they look really good. But when they look bad, they look really bad. And a good example is they got a 6-point lead with maybe 8 minutes to go. I'm thinking, okay, how long does this last? Well, it didn't last at all because Oklahoma came down the floor. A guy shoots a three from the corner, misses it. Arkansas rebounds it, but guess what? Big Z fouled the guy, and they showed a replay. He did foul him. The guy makes all three. Got rushed, went down the floor real quick, had a turnover, came back down. Now Nellie Davis fouls a guy that shoots a three, and he makes all three. So 6-point lead is 0. It's a tie game on 2 mistakes, really 3 mistakes on the turnover. That's how quickly this team can turn things around. One bad thing causes another bad thing, which causes another bad thing, and that's the story of this basketball team. When they look good, when it's all clicking, they look like a completely different team. They can't maintain it long enough.
No, yeah, the mental mistakes get to them, I think, a little bit.
Right.
You can go back and look at that. Mental mistakes and bad shooting, that's really been the storyline of this team. Eddie Lynn says the end of Tennessee-Auburn was very similar to the end of Arkansas-Oklahoma. You drop a play and see if it works. In both games, it didn't work because the shot didn't go in. That's just basketball.
Yeah, there was a little bit of difference. It looked like to me in the Tennessee timeout, they called for this guy over on the right side to shoot a short jumper. I think that was a jumper all the way. He's probably one of their better shooters. We're going to get it into you. You're going to be open. Let's get it up and shoot it. And he just missed. So maybe it looked more like what they wanted to do. But again, what I said, you can run it correctly, and it's still, if the ball doesn't go in, it doesn't go. And he's right. That's just basketball. That's what happens.
Yeah, if it doesn't go in, then it's sometimes luck there. Sherlock Hogg wants to know, how many players do you think we might lose to the draft this year? If a good number of the current rotation players return next season, I think we can make noise next year. Expectations this year were just too high.
I don't know if the expectations were too high. I mean, when you looked at who came in, they had a lot of 5 stars and some 4 stars, and then they had these 2 transfer portal guys, the older guys that looked really good on paper, and there were things that happened that caused that not to come around. Who will go to the draft? There's only one player on this team that I think has got a real hard decision to make, and that's Boogie. And in the preseason, he was listed as a lottery pick. The last thing I saw on him, he was 26th, so that's quite a drop. My experience with players that are sitting out, no longer playing, is they will drop more because they're not playing. So I don't know how much further he drops, but he's the guy that has to make a decision. And hopefully he makes the right decision for Arkansas and for himself, and he comes back because I think they need him back next year. Some of these other guys, you know, Wagner, for instance, I don't think those guys are going to go pro, but I think they could go transfer to somewhere else. You don't know until the season's over if anybody's upset, didn't like the way this, I got to go to another team. The only saving grace is, but I don't think it's going to happen soon enough, all of this revenue sharing stuff is going to start to kick in about the time that players at the end of the season would hit the portal. Now, I think you're still going to see, now I don't know about Arkansas, but I think you're still going to see a lot of guys entering the portal this spring, but that may be the last time you see mass numbers of players hitting the portal. So again, it's just a guessing game, but absolutely you need to get as many of these guys, you know, Billy, you can name several of these guys in addition to Wagner that if they come back, we've seen them at moments in the game in which they've looked really good. Billy Richmond, you know, at times has looked really good. you can see with another year's experience that those are the older type players that kind of, because they got two new really good freshmen coming in. Well, they need some guys around them that have been here.
Yeah.
That's important to keep some of these guys and bring them back.
It's the way I've talked about this with a lot recently, especially on Full Court Press when I was talking with Jimmy Witt. You know, college basketball now is all about keeping guys and making sure they stay in your system and developing them. And before, you know, Coach Cal could just plug in really great talented players and play them in his system and have it work and then send them to the NBA. Well, look at what's working now in college basketball. Guys who are sticking around, and we say about all the bad parts of NIL, right? But that's a good part of NIL, is possibly being competitive.
I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case, but it's the case right now.
Right, but that is a positive right now of NIL, of going, look, we can be competitive with an offer. We can make it worth your while if you stick around for another season.
It's going to be interesting to see if Cal can go get some big people out of the portal or if it's too late to do that. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's not too late till the fat lady sings. We'll see what happens. This is a question for the off season. Really, we still got plenty of time left in the regular season to talk about. KY Hogs says, my wife dialed up a postcast for me Saturday night.
I think he meant podcast.
I think he might have meant podcast, but that's okay. Like a postcast podcast.
This guy's old like me.
That's all right.
He had to get his wife to dial it up.
She dialed up a postcast podcast for him on Saturday night after the game, and I could not believe some of the callers. Some guy went off on Davis and what a bad player he was. He scored 18 points. Did the guy watch another game?
Well, overall, Nelly Davis did have his best game as a Razorback. He started to hit some threes. I think he hit 3 of them. He made some other baskets, and he played good defense. He had some layups. He played good. He got some rebounds. He had some assists, but he scored 18 points, and that's what he came in here as an 18-point per game scorer. So if he can continue to do that, that's a big deal. But I'm sure that the guy that called in was mad because he's the one that took the last shot.
He is,
and it didn't look like a very good shot. So that's just a guy reacting to what he saw at the end of the game.
And honestly, it is warranted because part of me, when I watched that last play, I was like, okay, the play I'm not criticizing, I'm not. But why Nelly Davis there? Why go to Nelly Davis? Wouldn't you think maybe go to a Du Thero or even DJ Wagner?
Because didn't Thero inbound it?
Yeah, I think he did.
So
I'd have to go back and watch.
That's a little odd. I would think you would maybe want him to take the shot.
That's what I was saying. I was like, why? That just felt weird to me. And I know as Coach Cal, you trust in your guys,
Well,
right?
the thing about it is, if Nelly had made that shot, do you think he wouldn't be back now? You think it would be full scale, he's back.
People would have definitely given him a
lot
of credit.
I think he may have been gambling there a little bit. Cal may have been gambling a little bit.
That's what I think as well. Pig's Feet wants to know, based on current play, do you think Coach Cal will lose recruiting power or come back with a vengeance? All right.
Again, I don't know what happens this spring. But moving forward, I think we're going to see basketball coaches get back into their old mode of trying to bring in as good a freshman as they can get. If you get some one and dones, there's not a lot of one and dones anymore.
That's what I just talked about, right?
It may happen occasionally, but most of these guys, even if they're really good, are going to be 2 and done.
Oh, there you go.
But if Cal's selling, hey, you come in here and stay with me for 1 year, you may go, or by the second year, yeah, you can go to the NBA. I think he's still going to be able to get those kind of kids. What he has to do now is he's got to get some 4-stars, and they've got one, the kid, from Springdale. You get some 4-stars that maybe aren't up there right at the top, that definitely not going to be 1 or 2 and done, and get them to come in and stay 3 years, even 4 years. And what did we talk about last week? The NCAA now is going to just give a blanket 5-year. You got 5 years to play. You don't have to redshirt anymore. You will have 5 years to play.
Right.
Can you imagine taking a decent player and having him play in your system for 5 years, what he would be as a senior?
Yeah.
So if Cal can get some of that, I think it will help.
Well, if that goes through, too, because, again, that's a 5-year thing that they're talking about. They haven't pushed that through yet.
It's going to happen.
I think you're right. I think with the Diego Pavia stuff that's going on, I really think that they're going to come back and say, okay, we might need to give everybody a blanket 5th year. I mean, I mean, it's almost the norm now with after COVID,
Exactly,
basically.
exactly.
I mean,
You
come
can't
on.
just do that and go, well, that was just for COVID and all that stuff's over now, so go back
But
to
then you're
the...
going to have players that go, well, I want a fifth year too. What could I do if I had a fifth
Right.
year, you know?
So I think it's going to become standard.
I think you're right. Marty Berg's Proxy, what are your thoughts on the Hunter Shuffle that is approaching next year in Bud Walton Arena? Obviously, they want everyone to give more, but in return, wouldn't you agree that they should tell fans, in order to keep your current seats, you will have to give at whatever level? All I've gotten is moving up a level would give you a better chance at your current seats.
Okay, what he's basically saying is they're asking you to give more money, but they're not sort of guaranteeing you that it will get you the seats you want. And he's wanting specific deals. He's wanting the athletic department to say, okay, if you go up to this level of giving, you can have these seats. And he's saying, why not? Why are they not saying that? I can only guess, because I'm not, Hunter Yurachek's not going to tell me why he's doing that. My guess is he's not sure how this is going to play out. You don't give specific details when you don't know how it's going to turn out. You may have a high demand for this, you may have a low demand, and in addition to that, I'm not telling him what to do, but this is not a good year to redo the seating. It's just not.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean,
if
I were him, I'd wait a year.
Gosh, the timing of this couldn't be worse.
Exactly. I mean, if you want people to give more money, and I understand why he needs more money, but if you want to do that, it might be better to wait till next year. This is not a good year to go, hey, if you give us a whole lot more money, we'll let you keep the seats you got. We won't move you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get some people going, I'm not sure about that.
Did you see some of the comments on social media? And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Cole's crew on social media who went out and said, look, I'm really proud of my sister. Hunter Yurachek walked past us and she went and said to him, hey, you raising our tickets that we've had for a very long time from 5,000 to 40,000, that's insane to us. You're selling out. I can't remember the comment they made, to Hunter, but it was like, hey, come on.
Okay.
Look at the fans. But I mean, that's the thing. They're getting upset. People are
right
on social media. It's not a good look.
I don't think it's a good time to be doing this. And I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, me either. RazorAlex88 asked, and this is a great question to kind of follow that up with, how would you grade Hunter Yurachek and the job he has done since coming to Arkansas? I don't have any complaints right now, but I do see some unhappy people on social media probably blowing things out of proportion.
Yeah, I'm going to make a lot of people mad because I know some of these people that are angry, and I would give him a B+. I don't think these people that are calling him pay a check and all this stuff, they don't seem to understand the position he's in. There's an arms race going on in the SEC in almost every sport. First, you can talk about what he's going to need to do to take full advantage of revenue sharing starting this spring. And that means he's got to have enough money within his athletic department budget to make sure they can spend the maximum amount, which is $22 million, on these athletes. If you come up short, you're hurting yourself. You're going to hurt yourself in recruiting because you can recruit with that money. Okay, so he's got to do that. But he's also got to continue to improve facilities in every sport because the TV revenue money that's coming into the SEC, almost all of these schools are upgrading their facilities constantly.
Yeah. All the
right
time.
now, Dave Van Horn needs some upgrades. He talked about some things he would like to see.
He did.
Soccer still hadn't gotten the upgrades they want.
Park needs upgrades.
Women's softball doesn't have what they need. So he's got to deal with all that stuff and then come up with the amount of money they need to make revenue sharing work. And, he got criticized. Oh, we're behind on NIL. That's what's wrong. He got caught flat-footed. What he did was he did NIL based on the NCAA rules. And other schools like Tennessee, for instance, just went, we're going to challenge you in court. We're not going to do this. We're not going to follow your rules.
Right.
So, yeah, he got caught flat-footed, not realizing that a school would just sue the NCAA and say you can't enforce your own rules, which we've had 3 years of no rules on this now. So that's not his fault. And yet they blamed him, and yet they were saying other people need to give money, but not us, because we don't basically like NIL. This is a real conflict that I see among the Arkansas fan base. We hate NIL. We're mad. We don't even like this anymore. But you need to give more NIL money, just not me.
Yeah.
And what I'm telling you is he's got to generate that money. Whether you like it or not, you can't sit here and complain about not winning when you're not putting, when Arkansas has got to have the money to compete against these other SEC schools, and Hunter Yurachek has to come up with the money. So you may get mad about what he's trying to do with the seating at Bud Walton, but that may be what it takes. And if it goes from was paying $5,000, guess what? You had one heck of a deal for a long time.
You did, yeah.
It's over. College athletics, Frank's not here anymore. It's not the old days. You can't operate that way anymore. And I'm sorry, but you may have to give up your tickets to somebody that's willing to pay more.
You're right, and it is where college athletics, that's where it is now. So you cannot criticize him for trying to put the university in the best spot by generating that revenue.
The money that he needs.
The money that he needs. The other thing, too, that I see a lot of these fans with Hunter Yurachek, and I've made this point, a lot of people don't see it overall as an AD, right? There are so many things that go into being an AD, and people just point to, oh, well, Pittman's terrible, right?
You didn't fire him.
And you didn't fire him. That's the one thing. That is one of the one things that they say.
And what have we explained about why he didn't fire him?
But we have explained that. A lot of it's about money, right?
We have to put the money into getting players than paying off coaches.
But also I will say this. I said, but it's not just everyone just wants to look at the big three. Yes, a lot of it, a good portion of it is the big three. But people are going and saying Jordan Weber right now. Jordan Weber's awesome. Jordan Weber, man, the success, what she has done with Arkansas gymnastics. Who hired her?
I know.
Who hired her, right? But people just, that's not the big three, so it doesn't matter. No, it does when you look at holistically the job that an AD has done. You have to look at sports and the programs as a whole.
And he hired Cal, and under normal circumstances, that would have been a home run hire. It just didn't work out this year. It doesn't mean it won't next year or the year after.
That's the hope, right? He's hoping that, look, this is a anomaly, and he's hoping that it does work out in the long run.
The one criticism, or even, maybe not criticism, just suggestion I would have for Yurachek, hire some people with ties to the athletic department, whether it be an ex-coach, whether it be ex-players, people that understand Arkansas fans, people that have been around this fan base for years. Hire them to do PR work inside your athletic department, because these people that are mad, somebody can come out and explain it to them. You could take Houston Nutt and turn him loose on some of these mad basketball fans or football fans. I guarantee you'd have them back on your side just like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have said Houston Nutt should be in a bigger role in the
There's a number
department.
of people they could do. A lot of ex-players that you could bring them back here and you involve them in the program.
Get a GM. We've said it on this show before. Raleigh
Williams. Make hires like that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you completely. But just to see, it just maddens me. And I've said this to a lot of Hog fans that go, I know, because they don't look at the Directors' Cup standings or any of those things, because they don't care about that. They don't care about that. But that does matter. That does matter when you're looking at a job that an
Arkansas
AD
has
done.
one of the most successful overall athletic departments in the entire SEC.
Thank you.
They're just not up there where they need to be in football yet.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden they're down in basketball a little bit.
You're preaching to the
But you're
choir.
up there in baseball, you're up there in soccer, you're up there in softball.
He hired Chris Johnson to take over for Lance Harder in the women's track and field program. They won 2 national titles last year.
One of my nephews, to be my great nephew, lives in Houston. He's a high jumps coach for a high school down there. His daughter went to a Texas Tech meet, and Arkansas is recruiting her.
Oh,
she might come here. She's a high jumper.
Okay.
Might be my first family member ever to be a Razorback.
That would be awesome. Oh, I cannot wait. All right, well, Chris Johnson needs to get her, okay?
That's
what
right.
needs to happen. I'll let Chris Johnson know. Okay, Mount Elba Hog says, I have a suggestion for opening ceremonies. When the ROTC posts colors, have someone lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Then the singer sings the national anthem. What do you think? I would like to hear comments from everyone on what they think.
Well, I like that idea. Now, admittedly, I've never seen it in college athletics. The only place I've ever seen the Pledge of Allegiance done before a game was at Elkins High School. And it was cool. They brought the seniors out with the flags, and they stood there, and everybody in the stands, even the visiting stands, those people went, oh, okay, we better do this. Yeah. And they all stood and did that, and then there was the national anthem. I tend to think that colleges aren't going to do this because I tend to think that a typical fan at a college game is sitting there thinking, get this show on the road. We'll stand here. Because I've talked to too many fans that what their attitude about the national anthem is, get somebody that sings it fast. I don't want to
I get that all the time. People are going, oh, okay.
I don't want to sing it slow. When you get it out of the way and let's play the game. So I'm not sure that adding the Pledge of Allegiance, first of all, I'm not sure how many people know that.
The Pledge of Allegiance?
I don't know. They used to do it in school, but I don't know. Do they still do that in school?
When I was in school, they did it.
I don't know. I don't know, but they could put it up on the video board.
If people don't know the Pledge of Allegiance, oh my goodness.
I'm not sure I could remember it. I haven't done it.
You can.
I'm
if
not
you
sure.
started it,
It's been a long
Pledge
time.
of Allegiance to the flag. You got it. You got it, Mike.
Whatever. So I like the idea. I'm not sure you're going to see it on the college level.
Somebody could probably correct me if I'm
but
wrong.
But he's asking for input. So if you want to,
yeah, give us give us what you think in the comment section below on this video. Let us know. What we'll do is we'll go through and I'll pin some comments and let people read them. But correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. But I have done the Pledge of Allegiance at a game before. And I believe it was at a championship game, but I can't remember if it's like, I think they do it at bigger games.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember it, but.
I think I have a weird memory where I was like, oh, we're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, and it was before a game. So I remember it being before kickoff of a game. I'll have to find that. If I can remember what game it was at, I'll let you guys know. But let us know in the comments what you think on Mount Elba Hogs question. Hot Dogger says, though, this year's college football playoff was one of the lowest watched on TV in a long time. Do you think NIL and the portal is starting to turn people off from watching college football?
You know, I started looking into the TV ratings for various national championship games and checking out theories. Like one theory would be, well, you have to have the SEC involved. If they're not involved at all, it reduces. Well, no.
No.
The highest rated national championship game ever was Texas and USC back in the BCS era. And that's the highest one ever. And there's no SEC team in there. You could come up with a lot of different theories which cause what causes people to watch the game if they aren't fans of those two teams. Because that's what you have to do to have high ratings. Obviously, fans of the two teams that are involved are going to watch that game. But you got to get a lot of other people to watch it. So how do you, if you're not a fan of Ohio State, if you're not a fan of Notre Dame, how do you get somebody to watch that? And I think a lot of times it has to do with individual players because fans don't know a lot about teams, but they might know players.
Yeah.
So if you have a Heisman guy on one team, or if you have one of the top running back in the country, or the top quarterback, or anything, storylines in your head that are easier to process than knowing a lot about either team, because neither team is your team.
Yeah.
But I give Jacob credit for this of our staff because he was talking about this game this year.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, they got to do something about how long this lasts. Because when you run this down to the middle of January, you have almost 2 months from the end of the regular season.
Yeah, it's like burnout, right?
That's
like
too
burnout.
long.
Yeah.
That's too long. So that was number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't know how they decided on this, but Monday was Martin Luther King Day. You know what that means? That means you had a holiday weekend for everybody that works. They know that they don't have to be back at work on Monday. So a lot of people go off on a trip. So they're gone Saturday, Sunday, then Monday maybe they're coming back so they can be at work on Tuesday, and maybe if they're traveling, they don't see it.
Right.
So you had that. And oh, by the way, let's throw the inauguration in on that.
That was crazy.
So the truth is that this low rating for this game this year is obvious. They had too much going on.
But to be fair, even though it was still a low rating, it was down, 16, 17% from last year, it was still the highest watched non-NFL sporting event. Like that it still was. So
I just think they got to watch stuff like that. They shouldn't have had it on a Monday.
Yeah, I think
Martin Luther King. Don't do that. Inauguration Day, don't do that.
It was too many things on a Monday. They've had it on Mondays
that's
before.
That's right, but I still don't think it's a Monday. I don't know. I realize you're dealing with the NFL at that point, but play this game earlier for one thing.
They have to change the schedule, and
I
that's going to be the hardest
think
thing
they've got
for
to
them
do away with that week where you just have all these bye teams that don't play. Get everybody playing right off the bat.
It's the first year that we've had the 12-team playoff, and
Right.
so there are obviously some kinks that they're going to work out. I think they're going to go back to the drawing board. I mean, look, if you look at holistically the ratings, I mean, even though they were down, right, from in years past, they still did really well with the ratings of the entire thing. So the TV networks are happy at the end of the day. The thing is, you have to go back to the drawing board and go, how can we not make people burnt out? Like, oh, I just watched this team and I just watched this team. And oh gosh, like this just feels like it's dragging on a little bit. Like you said, I mean, you just got to figure out ways. The schedule's going to be the hardest thing for them to deal with this 12-team playoff. How are you going to do that with the NFL? They're going to come at you every which way of like trying to switch the schedule around. So I'm going to be curious to see what they do next year with it. Ross Yingling says, I have a proposal. It should be called the Ole Miss tax. Anytime an athlete transfers, sorry, I'm laughing because this is great. Anytime an athlete transfers, the school they transfer to must reimburse the previous school at a rate of 50% of the new deal. Okay.
I'd say that would be effective because let's take Ole Miss, for example, in their $20 million NIL war chest last year.
Yeah.
This would reduce it to $10 million.
Okay.
Make a big difference in what they're able to do. I like the idea. I don't think it'll be adopted because, again, we think revenue sharing will accomplish the same thing. It's just a different way of approaching it. But if they didn't do revenue sharing, this would be a good answer because that's the whole thing. You got to reduce the ability of teams to steal your players through the portal with big NIL money.
I just like that it's called the Ole Miss tax.
Oh, that's good too because they're the ones that do it.
I can tell who Ross Yingling is a fan of there by calling it the Ole Miss tax. I think other schools might call it something else for them, but I think that's funny. Hogs says, I guess I'm not smart enough to understand how revenue sharing is going to end the portal poaching and tampering that happens now. Won't the big boosters that give to collectives to pay NIL now just ask the schools who they want and contact the kid's agent and say, I own Yellowwood Lumber. If you come to Auburn, I'll pay you $1 million a year to wear my t-shirts.
Okay. Again, as this is being proposed behind the scenes, and it's not established yet, but as it's being proposed, the NIL deal would be a true business transaction. So what the NCAA would do is if you wanted to make this $1 million deal, they would send a representative from a company they're going to hire to do this. And they're experts in determining how much value really is to this, how much will this endorsement add to this Yellowwood Lumber guy that's offering $1 million. So what if they come in and they check around and they do all their figuring and I mean, they know how to do this. I don't even know how to explain how they know what to do, but I've been told
they're just taking a market value
they
of
know
them
how to
and,
do
and
this.
going through
And so they look through this and they go, I tell you what, it's not going to result in $1 million extra in Yellowwood Lumber sales for this guy to walk around wearing Yellowwood Lumber t-shirts. It might help them a little bit, but it's not going to be $1 million. So we've determined maybe you get $100,000 in sales. So that's the NIL that you'll get. And the theory is this is the way it works across the board this way. This stupid thing where, what's his name at Georgia, a failed quarterback, by the way. I mean, his team didn't go all the way. But suddenly, he's going to go to Miami, and they're going to give him $10 million. What kind of an NIL deal is that? What is he going to do for $10 million? I mean, what is he going to do?
Listen, he does a lot of TikTok dances with his girlfriend. I mean, come on.
What in Miami, Florida, what is he going to do that will generate $10 million in revenue for a company? He's not going to do that. So they will come in and look at that and go, wait a minute. There's no way this is an NIL deal. This is buying a player, which they're not going to let you do.
Right.
So that's the way that works.
But it's definitely going to be taken to court. The lawyers and everybody recognize that this will be taken to court.
You're a big court person. You're a big lawyers person.
I am because I've talked to some
I'm anti-court, anti-lawyer.
I know you're anti-court, anti-lawyer. I'm just going to give you the option I've heard from these NIL lawyers that go, we know it's going to be taken to court, and we think we have a good chance of winning because they say, you know, it's a free market, right? If you are,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the guy who owns Yellowwood Lumber Tees, right, you might think that the value of the player that you're getting is really $1 million.
You're a booster. You're not doing it for that. You're just giving that player $1 million.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of failed deals that happen all over the country.
Not like that. Look.
Yeah, there is. Go look. Look at movies. Movies is a great example of this, and this is what lawyers would use in court. Movies is a great example, right? You may put on a movie, and you may want to hire, I don't know, who's like a big deal right now. Like a Chris Evans or a Sydney Sweeney or somebody like that. You may say, I'm going to pay them $10 million to be in my movie.
And the movie could bomb.
And the movie bombs, and the movie doesn't make the money back.
Just let me tell you, these people are going to come in, and they're going to know whether this is a booster trying to bring a guy into play.
Right, but here's my proposal. Here's where I think you're going to really take away this. And this is where I've been asking, please, 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 this will help. In addition to revenue sharing, make these athletes employees of the university.
And put them in a union.
Allow them to form a players' union and allow them to create a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. And then say, guess what? Your lawsuits, you can't sue because you signed to this. You agreed to this.
And that may be what happens.
And that's what I hope will
let me tell you, I'm going to give you my counter to your saying that you've talked to lawyers, agents for lawyers that say, we're going to sue and we're going to win.
Yeah.
I've talked to people that know what's going on with these revenue sharing, and they say, let them sue. We're going to win.
Ooh, I love it. I love it, Mike. We're going to see what happens.
I'm pulling for them because I hate suers. I hate lawsuit people.
And I get.
This is why we're in this mess. Tennessee, you jerks. You're one of the few schools in the country that think it's okay to just buy championships, buy players. All the way back to Phil Former and that safe he had in his house where recruits come in and, oh, you want to view my office back here? And they walk back there and there's an open safe with money in it.
Yeah, the McDonald's bags, you remember that?
Yes. So come on. I mean, no, I hate that stuff.
I understand, but we're going to see what happens because it's going to happen very, very soon. Revenue sharing is expected to be passed in April. That's coming up so soon. So we're going to see what happens with all of this. I cannot wait. And I also can't wait to see, because there's been differing opinions and things that people have said about these collectives and how they're going to be able to operate after revenue sharing. Will the university assume them? Will they still be able to operate normally? Will they have to prove the NIL deals that they're brokering with athletes throughout the community? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with that as well. But look, in response to this explanation of how NIL deals will be reduced under revenue sharing, a poster on X said to Mike, and I saw this post, Mike, they said, if it's Hunter Yurachek or anyone at Arkansas, and they don't know the actual rules and what's going on, which is easy to look up and research, then Arkansas athletics is in a more dire situation than we thought.
And let me talk about why he responded that way. Yeah. Because there was an earlier post, which I couldn't find, in which a guy said, oh, Mike's probably just talking to Hunter Yurachek, and Yurachek's telling him this is what's going to happen with revenue sharing. Well, let me answer that first of all. And his suggestion, well, if it is Hunter Yurachek, he's clueless, and we're in trouble. It's not Hunter Yurachek. You know, and I know, and anybody with a brain that's in the media knows that Hunter Yurachek doesn't go around going, hey, Mike, come over here. I'll tell you what.
Mike, we got to ask a lot more questions.
That's
we need to get more tea on stuff, okay?
He will say hi to you. He will talk small talk to you. He's not going to go into revenue sharing and talk to me. He's not my source, okay? So they're wrong about that. I love how you go from one guy saying it, well, if it is, then that means he's a doofus.
Listen, if Mike, if you were talking to Hunter Yurachek and getting the skinny on all of this, we need to get a skinny on a lot more. We need to get a skinny on a lot more.
So, now, he's saying he doesn't know the rule or rules. I don't know what that really means. There are no rules yet on revenue sharing because it hasn't been passed.
None.
So there aren't any rules. So I don't know what he talks about. He doesn't know the rule. If he's talking, there is a rule. There are two of them. Original NIL rules that are still on the books with the NCAA. Rule number 1. You can only offer an NIL deal to an athlete after they sign with your school. In other words, you can't use it to recruit. And the other one is you can't offer people more money, more NIL money for extra performance. If you come to our school and you throw 10 touchdown passes, we'll get you $8 million. If you throw 20, we'll give you 16.
And then the university cannot pay those athletes.
Right.
That's
so those
right now.
Those are the rules that are in place.
Yeah.
There are no rules because Tennessee and other schools filed a lawsuit and that's in court right now, and there's just been no rules for 3.5 years. So I don't know what he's talking about when he says we don't know the rule. There's a rule, it's not being enforced. And if he's talking about revenue sharing, there aren't any rules yet. We'll find out what they are once it's passed.
Yeah.
So then he's saying, what did he say about, let's go back and look at that again.
Okay, let me look. Then if they don't know the actual rules, it's easy to look up and research. Then Arkansas Athletics.
Easy to look up and research.
Okay.
So he's basically saying that whoever I'm talking to, any average fan can find out the truth by just doing easy research. So I went, okay, I know who I'm talking to.
And your source is a good source, by the way.
Yeah,
It's not 100
I know who I'm talking about, but I went, okay, let's take his suggestion. Something any fan could do.
Okay.
Because that's what he's suggesting. So I went to Google. Isn't that a place where a fan can go?
Sure,
and
anybody can go to Google.
And I typed in, how will NIL deals be affected under revenue sharing?
Yeah.
And guess what popped up?
An article, right?
Clemson's website.
There you go. Okay.
Okay, should I read this?
You can read it. It's here. I have it on the back. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, you read it.
All right. So Clemson University's website, where Mike went to, said this. The settlement also allows for third-party NIL payments to student athletes. Those third-party payments must be fair market value payments for a legitimate business purpose and not used for pay-for-play, i.e., merely an inducement to enroll or remain at a particular institution.
That's all I've been saying.
Yes,
So if I'm wrong, they're wrong.
Yep.
So any fan can do that. Just type it in there and see what they're saying, because there are obviously people at Clemson that know what's going on behind the scenes.
That's a really good way of putting it, too.
So they agree with the person I'm talking to who's not at Clemson. Right. So that's what we're hearing behind the scenes. Look, I can't guarantee you this is going to pass. What I know is that Tom Tuberville is working on this with Congress. He's a former football coach. They all know he knows it. So they think he can get both the Senate and the House to propose a law which will allow this to be in place, and then the Senate approves it, and then it gets signed by the president. That's the way laws come about. And the president is a Republican, and Tuberville's a Republican, and they think they'll be able to push this all through.
Correct.
Now, even if it's a law, it doesn't mean they can't sue. And
right.
There will be.
There is expected to be lawsuits.
Yes, and what I've talked to people and I said, what about? They're going to sue you. And he goes, let them do it. We think we're going to win. So I asked specifically, what makes you think you will win? And the guy I'm talking to said, look, you got to go back to the original Supreme Court decision, because what did it say? It said, if you use a player's name, image, and likeness, they have to be partially compensated for that use. And it came about because in those days, a school or anyone else could just use a player and a name, or video games. At Arkansas, I remember when Darren McFadden was playing here, you could buy an Arkansas jersey with a 5 on it. It didn't say McFadden, but it was a 5, and everybody knew who it was. Yeah. And somebody gave me one of those, and I still have it hanging in my closet. I get it out sometime. D-Mac.
There were people in other states profiting off of these athletes, people who don't even live in Arkansas that were selling Darren McFadden merchandise.
Yes. So that's what the Supreme Court said. If you're going to sell this stuff, you got to give the athletes some of the money. Didn't say anything about buying players in recruiting by giving them NIL money. And that's so the Supreme Court knows that their ruling has been taken by other people and used to do something entirely different.
Yeah.
So as a part of this settlement, college football acknowledged we've been making a lot of extra money in TV revenue for 10 or 15 years now. Yeah, the athletes probably should have gotten more of that. So they've agreed to go back and pay something like $2 billion to athletes going all the way back to 2016. And when they did that, the court system went, we like that. We think you're doing the right thing. Okay, we're going to help you now because we're not trying to destroy college athletics. I want to say this to you people, even if you think I'm an idiot and don't agree with me, you are so mad that you cannot believe this problem will be solved. You are so jaded that you believe we're stuck forever with this dopey system where you just buy players. And I'm telling you, there are more coaches, more athletic directors around the country, more people involved in athletics that hate that idea than like it. For every Tennessee where they go, oh, it's okay to buy players, there's 5, 6 other schools that are going, no, that's not what we want. Fans of other schools, I give Arkansas fans credit. They don't like it. I agree with them. It's terrible. We shouldn't have to put up with this garbage. Don't be so jaded that you think it can't happen, because there are a lot more of those people behind this than there are people that are all going, we'll sue you. We want to get more money for our clients.
I know you think that, and I
can't stand those people.
I know you do. I know you do. I know you hate all of them, but I will say this. You're exactly right about what you said. There is a ton of ADs, and Hunter Yurchek was one of them, that I remember, what was it, last year, that went to Congress, that went last year and said, please help us.
Please help us.
This is getting out of hand. This is crazy. How can we come up with a solution?
And the latest thing is all these coaches going all the way up to national championship teams. What's happening to Notre Dame? Yeah. Have you looked?
Yeah.
You can win the national championship or get to the championship game, and you're still getting players poached, and their coaches are tired of this. Yeah. And we've lost some coaches recently because of it. They've just said, I give up, I quit. I'm not going to do with this anymore.
I mean, and honestly, it's making the NCAA become less and less and less irrelevant. With every move that goes down, that you just go, why is the NCAA here? What are they doing?
And I'm saying, don't be so cynical. Don't be so mad that you just refuse to recognize that this problem can be solved. It can be solved because more people want to solve it than don't want it solved.
Absolutely.
We're going to gang up on those people. The people that are tired of buying players and thinking you can win championships with pure money and that's all you have to have. Those of us that don't like that, there are more of us than there are those that are willing to go, yeah, boy, if we get some more money, I'm Lane Kiffin, give me some more money. We'll figure this out next year. We almost got it last year. We got to the Gator Bowl. Now just give us some more money.
We got to the Gator Bowl. We did that.
We'll get some more money and we'll do this thing. We'll go all the way. There are more of us than there are them.
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. I mean, look, Ole Miss wasn't in the national championship game. Gosh, they weren't even in the 12-team playoff. So look, sometimes it's not all about money. It's important in this day and age. It's not all about the money. And this is, I think we're making the steps to get better at getting college football and college athletics as a whole.
Being back what it was. It's never going to go back to where they don't get anything.
No,
but what are they going to have? They're going to still have their room, board, and tuition, but they're going to have a lot of extra spending money. More spending money than you honestly need when you're a college student. You'll be able to buy a car. You won't have to have a booster buy you a car. You can buy your own car.
That's awesome. I think that, to me, is like, that's where I can see all the positives of NIL, of players going and saying, okay, I can market myself. I have marketability now. I can make money off of who I am as a person, who I am as an athlete. I can start making money off of that. And maybe we even go further to say, Mike, that schools will start teaching student athletes how to utilize that money, maybe giving them people in their corner to actually help them manage that money and put it away, maybe put it into an account and
Exactly.
do the right things.
So they don't end up after 4 years if it's all gone.
Exactly. I would like to see that as well. And look, we're going closer and closer and closer to hopefully reaching a great solution. It's not here yet, but I am so excited to see what happens in April, Mike.
So don't get mad at me and say I'm an old guy that just, refuses to believe the truth. You're the one that's old. You know what old is? Old is sitting around going, this is terrible. It's never going to be solved.
Mike.
I'm old, but I'm optimistic. You're not.
Mike, I appreciate you. And look, if you're on social media arguing with Mike, just know we're going to use it for the show, by the way. You're not safe anymore, okay? You're going to be put in up for Ask Mike. That's going to do it, though, for this week's episode of Ask Mike. We will see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.